Hi everybody, welcome to 9 News Plus. I'm Jennifer Meckles, joined by Kyle Clark today. We are talking about the primary election on Tuesday. Lots of big races that you guys are going to be following. Kyle and Marshall, of course, lead our election coverage. So let's go through a couple of the races because we know folks at home are trying to get caught up, cast those ballots, and tune in on Tuesday.
Yep.
Congressional races. Let's start with those. What's the big one? We've got several.
It's Lauren Boebert's race. I mean, she's the best known Republican in Colorado. She's really the only Colorado politician with any kind of a big national profile. She has moved from the 4th Congressional District on the western slope that she previously represented over to the 3rd on the eastern slope because, let's face it, she was going to lose in the old district. She also had some family stuff going on. Her marriage broke up, her kid's been in trouble, that kind of thing. So she says she needed a fresh start for her family. She just happened to find it in the safest Republican seat in the state. She came in, she's running for Ken Buck's old seat. It's a 6-way race. Okay. She is heavily advantaged by the fact that it's a 6-way race. It's going to be very difficult for any of those other candidates to match the advantage she gets from her name ID, from her 10 times war chest that she has versus the other candidates. And the fact is, there is a sizable anti-Boebert vote out there from what we can tell in the polling and just anecdotally, but it's going to be split amongst all these other people. So she's feeling very confident going into primary night. And then she's got to be very confident for the general election because it's the safest Republican seat. Now, Democrats, they've got a primary too in CD3 representing Doug Coe, Loveland, Eastern Plains. They would love to think that Boebert could make that race competitive. I'd need to see some polling. Yes, she took a safely Republican seat on the western side of the state and she made it competitive through her actions. But the seat that she's moved into has twice the Republican advantage that the old one did. It's a very, very safe Republican seat. So conventional wisdom holds the Republican winner of that seat on Tuesday is going to hold it in the general election to replace Ken Buck.
CD4, for those who maybe are not in that district, we're talking Eastern Plains, running all the way up to Loveland, down to Douglas County, has been, you said, very, very comfortably conservative for a very long time.
For a very, very long time. And because of the fact that you've got that race that also has Jerry Sonnenberg, Deb Flora, Peter Yu, Richard Holtorf in it as well, Mike Lynch, former state minority leader. There's just a lot of non-Boebert choices. Had those other candidates coalesced around one of them to run against her, I think it could be a really tight race for her. But that's not what happened. They all stayed in. They all thought that they were the best choice. So now that's what we've got when it comes to the GOP race in the 4th Congressional District.
National media will be watching that race too. Yeah. That's going to be really interesting for them as well.
Yeah, because she's got a huge profile. She's a lightning rod nationally. And it was a big story last year when she only won a safe Republican seat by 500-some votes over Adam Frisch, the Democrat, who's going to stay and run again in CD3. That's her old district. That's Western Slope and Pueblo. He's waiting for whoever comes out of a GOP primary in that race, in which the favorite is a lawyer named Jeff Hurd. He's kind of backed by your establishment Republican types. He's got a pretty decent amount of money, and he faces two kind of far-right candidates in Stephen Varela, who's currently on the state school board, and Ron Hanks, who had a failed campaign for U.S. Senate, doesn't live in the district, says he now lives in the district. Those are kind of the far-right candidates. The state Republican Party has endorsed Ron Hanks, the underdog in that race, as the state Republican Party moves far to the right. It'll be interesting to see how much that counts for Hanks, if he can pull off a win there. Democrats, Adam Frisch, the guy who nearly beat Boebert, would love for one of the far-right guys to win, because then he would think that he's got a chance to pull the upset again.
Could make it more competitive for him in the fall, for the general.
Yep. If Jeff Hurd, the more traditional Republican, he's not a centrist, right? He's not a moderate. He's not a centrist. He's just kind of a pre-Trump Republican. If he were to win, the district is really designed well for him to do okay, even if the Democrat Adam Frisch has a ton of money.
Okay, so that's CD3. We're talking about Boebert's old district, new district that she's running in CD4. We've talked about. Before we move on to the other congressional districts, CD4 also has a special election. That is an interesting storyline as well. But the GOP candidate for that is not running in the general. So it's a little confusing to people.
It is. It's a lot of names. It's a lot of numbers, but hopefully everybody follows their own congressional district. So again, we're back in CD4. That's Eastern Plains, Doug Coe, Loveland, and there's a special election just to fill out the remaining 6 months of Ken Buck's term. Essentially kind of a placeholder person. Republicans picked Greg Lopez because he is not running for the seat full time. He's just running to hold it for a couple of months.
Temporary guy.
Yep. He was in the Republican primary for governor, lost to Heidi Ganahl. He's kind of he's a fringier guy. Some of his beliefs talked about doing away with one person, one vote in Colorado, things like that. But he's the Republican choice, and by all accounts, should have a pretty easy time winning that special election in a heavily Republican district. Democrats selected Trish Calvarese, who's one of several Democrats who's also running in the primary to run for a full 2-year term. I think everybody, myself included, will be watching the margin. Does it match up with the district, or are there independents who jump in and pick the Democrat? If there's a chance that that race could be tough for Lauren Boebert in the fall, it'll show up in that special election primary. If the Democrat really overperforms, if Lopez really underperforms.
Sure.
Even then, it's a long shot, but that's what I'll be watching.
That's interesting. So it's not even really about the two people running. It's just what that story tells about the bigger, bigger trend.
Yep.
Two other quick congressional districts to talk about. CD5 down in Colorado Springs. State Party Chair, GOP Chair Dave Williams is running in this.
Yes, he is running
surrounded by controversy
in this race. Yes, because he essentially has remade the Colorado Republican Party, or the ruins of it, at its lowest point in power since before World War II. He's remade the party to benefit him, to attack Republicans he doesn't like, to boost Republicans he does like, and to financially support his own campaign. He told us on Tuesday of the week before the primary, no, they haven't put any money into my campaign. Filings came out a few days later. They absolutely have been putting money forward for his campaign. They've done mailers for him and other things. Never mind the fact that he's constantly using the state's Republican mailing list to promote his campaign and to attack his rival, Jeff Crank. Jeff Crank, similar to Jeff Hurd, he's a traditional pre-Trump Republican, which these days will get you labeled a rhino and a squish and a sellout and all of those things in today's Colorado Republican Party. But that's the race in the 5th. You got the GOP Party Chair, Dave Williams, who is using party resources to boost his own congressional campaign, and you got Jeff Crank, who's backed by the Koch brothers group, Americans for Prosperity. He spent a ton of money down there to win this seat, which incidentally, he tried to win decades ago when Doug Lamborn first won it. It was Doug Lamborn versus Jeff Crank. Crank lost to Lamborn, went into talk radio, did some other work in conservative politics, and now he's back to try and win the seat again, but he's got to take down Dave Williams. That, to me, is the second most interesting race in the state, behind the Lauren Boebert one, because this is a referendum on Williams by the folks who know him best in El Paso County. Are they cool with the fact that he's become kind of like a Donald Trump 2.0? The party exists to serve me and my friends and screw other Republicans? Or will people down there be like, no, not what we're interested in sending to Congress?
I mean, members of his own party have called for him to resign over some of his controversy. So it will be interesting to see which way
some love him, though. You know, I mean, some love him. I mean, the folks on the far right love him. They love the fact that he trashes moderate Republicans, that he trashes traditional Republicans. So that'll be a really, really telling race. I have not seen public polling on that race. So that'll be one that we watch as well, because the referendum on Williams speaks to his leadership of the party as a whole as well.
Last congressional district is 8, Denver to Greeley area. What's the storyline there?
You've got a Republican primary there. They're trying to face Democratic Representative Yadira Caraveo, the first-term congresswoman, won that district 2 years ago when it was created for the first time. She beat Republican Barb Kirkmeyer. This time, the Republicans running are Gabe Evans. Think basic pre-Trump kind of traditional Republican. He's fairly conservative, though. I mean, he's a Trump Republican, I should say. And then Janik Joshi, who used to be in the state legislature, more of a far-right guy who's moved into the district to run, and he's backed by the Colorado GOP. Again, Colorado GOP has dropped their neutrality rules this year so they can wade into races and back up their own chairman against other Republicans. They can back Lauren Boebert against other Republicans, back Ron Hanks on the Western Slope, and so they can back Janik Joshi in the 8th Congressional District. He's probably the longest shot of all of them, to be honest with you. Gabe Evans has got a lot of that Americans for Prosperity money behind him. He was in the race early. Joshi entered the race a little bit later, but the state party has endorsed Joshi there. And again, the winner of that race to represent the district that goes from the north side of the metro up to Greeley, that race is in CD8, Evans versus Joshi, to face the Democrat Yadira Caraveo, who's got a lot of money. And it's a swing district, right? It's a swing district. It could go either way, but she's the incumbent and she'll have money to spend.
And if it goes super far right on primary night, that might make it less competitive than in the general November.
Oh, Yadira Caraveo would be thrilled if Janik Joshi wins. And I think it's a real long shot for him to win, but I think all of the Democrats around the state are not only rooting for the far-right candidates to win, like they did 2 years ago, they've put some money in to prop up some of these people, specifically to prop up Ron Hanks in the, I lose my numbers now, in the 3rd on the Western Slope. They've spent some money to say, Ron Hanks, you know, so conservative, thinking the GOP primary voters will be like, well, hot dang, I need that Ron Hanks. And that's the guy they want to face.
Yeah, that makes sense. Have we covered all the congressional districts
I believe
on
we
your
have.
list?
Yes.
Okay, let's talk about state party races, state races for state politics. 2 Denver progressives are running for re-election in their state house seat. What are those races? Why are we watching them?
So we're watching the 2 races with Representative Elizabeth Epps, who's finishing out her first term, represents East Denver, and Tim Hernandez, former educator, now appointed member of the state house, representing West Denver. Okay. They're 2 of the farthest left legislators in the House. They're both lightning rods for controversy, especially around the Israel-Hamas war, things like that. So there is a lot of business money coming in to take them out. Okay. There's a lot of centrist Dem, moderate Dem money coming in to take them out. And they each have a more centrist Dem challenger. Elizabeth Epps is facing Sean Camacho, who is a veteran, an attorney, a former Republican not too long ago. But even the governor has come in and endorsed Camacho over Epps. Her own House Speaker has come in and endorsed Camacho over Epps.
Is that unusual?
She's burned every bridge at the Capitol. It's highly unusual. But the fact is, her way of dealing with things down there has rubbed a lot of her fellow Democrats the wrong way, and a ton of them have lined up behind her primary challenger, which is highly unusual. On the west side of town, Tim Hernandez appears to have done a little bit better job of being on the far left in terms of ideology, but not having the personal issues with his coworkers. You don't see a ton of Democrats lining up to endorse his opponent, a ton of legislative Democrats to endorse his opponent, Cecilia Espinoza, who's been in the state party for a long time. She actually vied for the appointment to the seat against him, and party activists picked him. This is the first time that he goes before voters for a primary referendum. Again, both these seats safely Democratic. Winner of the primary is going to win the seat in November. But do Democrats pivot away from the hard left to go to the center? Or there's a very real chance it's a split verdict. One of the far left members win, one of them loses.
And does that tell us trends in just Denver, or is that a trend statewide with these 2 races? Or are these so specific to Denver, we're really looking at Denver voters?
Yeah, I think you can extrapolate it to some extent, right? Because Denver and the metro area is kind of the beating heart of Democratic politics. Not the only spot, but it is. In the same way that El Paso County and Dave Williams, El Paso County is kind of the beating heart of Republican politics in Colorado for a long time. So neither of those races are statewide referendums on the far left and the far right. But it does give you an idea of how a lot of people very key to the party's success feel about those folks who have pulled them to the far left and the far right.
That makes sense. Let's talk about Denver District Attorney.
Yeah.
I don't feel like we ever get super excited about district attorney races, but this one's kind of interesting. First time the job's been open since 2016.
17, yep, yeah, 16, 17, you're correct, yep.
And this is the person, for those who don't know, who, powerful position in the criminal justice system, DA decides what charges to file against people who have been accused of a crime. So, powerful position.
Sure.
Denver specific, but this is getting a lot of statewide attention as well.
Yeah, because if that person wants a big statewide bully pulpit, they can have it.
Okay.
Beth McCann, current occupant of the seat, hasn't really used it that way. Okay. But her predecessor, Mitch Morrissey, was very vocal on a lot of statewide criminal justice issues. Yeah, Bill Ritter, who held that office and went on to be governor. So it would be a very powerful position for that reason.
Or even a launching pad.
Indeed. So 2 candidates running. Leora Joseph, longtime prosecutor on like the local state level, on the county system, that kind of thing. She's now working for the state on the intersection of criminal justice and behavioral health. She's running as the self-appointed change candidate. She has said, I will change everything. And she told us in our extended interview, that's not hyperbole. She wants to change everything about the way that that office works. She has no love lost for Beth McCann and how she's run that office. Thinks that she's been soft on crime, hasn't aggressively prosecuted the small stuff, wants to change how prosecutions run. She would shake up a lot of things. She's running against John Walsh, former U.S. Attorney for Colorado, appointed by former President Barack Obama, longtime federal prosecutor, not local prosecutor. Okay. He's making his second run for that office. He ran 20 years ago. And he doesn't like to be called a status quo candidate, doesn't like to be called a continuation candidate, but by the fact that he's not calling to blow everything up, metaphorically, he would represent more of a continuation of the way that things are done. But he is calling for a tougher approach to violent crime, youth violence, some of the smaller end stuff that isn't getting prosecuted as much now, car theft, that kind of thing. So both the candidates are calling for change. Okay. The question is how much, and they have different types of experience. That said, compared to what you're seeing in the other party primaries, these 2 candidates are pretty close together on a lot of issues. They also respect each other. Walsh and Joseph really do respect each other. They both think the other one could do the job.
Wait, in politics?
Yeah, in politics.
What?
How about that? How about that? But the question is, you know, is it going to be somebody who's going to go in like Joseph and say, today everything changes. We do everything differently as of today. And Walsh's thought is, I've managed big, important prosecutorial offices for decades. Let me come in, see what's working, see what's not, and make some changes.
Okay. And this is a primary election, but there is nobody running Republican for
Correct.
this. So whoever's winning on Tuesday is the new DA.
Yeah, for all intents and purposes.
Okay. Have we missed any?
I don't think that we have. I mean, there's going to be, you're going to have county commissioner races here and there. You've got some state legislative races, the primaries, and, you know, we'd be here all night if we talked about those. But the congressional races are your main attraction. Watching a couple of those far left legislators to see how Denver Democrats feel about them, and then the Denver DA race. It's going to be really interesting. And you got to remember that once we come out of this period, which congressional races in Colorado will be competitive in the fall? The 8th, North Metro, up to Weld County. That'll be competitive.
Maybe 3.
Maybe the 3rd on the Western Slope and Pueblo. Maybe not. Depends on what Republicans do there. And that's probably it. That's probably it. So the reason why we're paying a lot of attention to primary night is because a lot of stuff is going to get decided on Tuesday night. And
2 things for you before we let you go is Kyle has met with so many of these candidates, conducted debates with all these guys. It's really worth watching all those. Where can people find that stuff?
They can find all of that on the Next YouTube channel, on the 9 News YouTube channel, and on 9news.com and streaming on 9 News Plus. So wherever you're looking for it, it is there for you. The CD4 Republican debate is good, clean, family fun. Most of it's clean. It's good family fun. Would encourage you to check that out. We also did interviews with 4 out of the 6 candidates. And if you're interested in more information about the Denver DA's race, you really want to get a sense of those candidates, did a 45-minute joint discussion with the 2 of them. You can find that in all the same places.
That was just this past week. And then the plan for primary night, if you want to tune in and watch, what's the plan Tuesday night?
Invite folks to join me and the rest of the team 7 o'clock on primary night. We will be going straight through on 9 News Plus on Channel 20, and then joining folks on 9 News later in the evening through 10:30 as the results come in. Polls close at 7. Early voting results come in 10 minutes after 7. We're going to have a lot to chew over right then, and then we'll watch the closer races on through the night. Well, thanks for catching us up. Kyle Clark, Marshall Zallinger will be out there as well that night, along with a lot of our own crews. And thank you guys. Go vote. It's super important. We'll see you Tuesday. Thanks.